someone who wasn't able to make it last year due to COVID and has absolutely kept her promise to be here in person this year. But more importantly that, since her inception as the Chief Executive of Co-operative Group, I'm delighted to say we've been working really well together since her inception to establish the importance of member ownership. And I truly believe that our strategy, New Era, will be heavily complemented by the leadership of this fabulous woman. It's the Chief Executive of Co-op Group, Shirine Khoury-Haq.
So, hello everyone, and it's wonderful to be here with you. Look, COVID meant that I couldn't be here last year, but I've been looking at this big screen and that video that I subjected you to last year. When I was kind of looking into the camera, I just have to apologize in person this year. That must have been awful on this big screen. But anyway, it's really nice to be here with all of you and to see so many familiar faces, including those who were at the March Retail Conference as well. I wanted to say thank you, first of all, to you, Rose, and the Co-ops UK team for inviting me to be part of today's event. We're so close now that this is my second badge. The first one said Co-ops UK. I don't think they can tell who's who anymore. I also wanted to thank those with whom I've been working, who I've had the pleasure of meeting, and who have really welcomed me into this role since I took on the CEO role at Co-op Group. You have all been so friendly and so welcoming, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. For those of you who haven't met me, just a little bit of background. I joined the Co-op Group in 2019, originally as the CFO. Then I took on an additional role to the CFO role where I led the life services businesses. That's our funeral, insurance, and legal services businesses. And then last year, I became the group CEO. I trained originally as an accountant. I kind of feel like all the best people do. Many don't bring that up in their past. I'm confessing it here. But the majority of my career has been in operations. And I've generally had global roles as a chief operating officer. And I was the chief operating officer of Lloyd's of London before I came here. I've also led parts of businesses. And my real background is leading large-scale change and very large technology and business change programs. So for a variety of reasons, all of this has led me to our co-op, a business which has and will continue to proudly support our members and our colleagues through some of the most challenging times in our history, while always finding routes to work cooperatively with others and role model our values and principles. So let me keep going. So look, I know that many of us, we've all experienced some very fast-paced, some very challenging and tough years across the last few years, and we have drawn strength from a model that is owned by those same members that it serves. I've seen a tremendous amount of resilience in our movement, and with responses that were made at speed in order to serve our members' needs and the needs of their communities with services and initiatives that really make meaningful and sustained differences. I also wanted to thank everyone in the room who enabled us to deliver on our vision, Cooperating for a Fairer World, in 2022, and to end our financial year in a much stronger financial position than we entered it in. For us, it was incredibly challenging last year, and there was a lot of work to be able to reset our business. That's along with our National Members Council, our members, our colleagues, and our board. We were able to deliver on our strategic priorities and keep our co-op group strong for future generations of members and fellow cooperators. In 2022, we made support payments of £13 million to our colleagues' membership cards in order to help them through the cost of living crisis. We signposted 1.4 million people to information, activity, and support for their mental well-being. We introduced a £1 million Warm Spaces funding boost to help local communities who were navigating increasing energy costs. And we invested £37 million into our food prices across our popular products. And all of that's detailed in our annual Cooperate report. And I really wanted to, again, thank everyone who helped us to make that happen. We also saw great engagement with new and existing members. Nearly 600,000 members joined Co-op Group in 2022, and we encouraged 219,000 lapsed members to re-engage with our products and our services and our businesses, and therefore with the cooperative movement. And this was the first time that we had seen a growth in our membership rate in 5 years. And with that growth, our new members brought with them a brand new passion and enthusiasm, which has been wonderful to see. They've supported us with our causes, with our fundraising. They shaped our businesses. They helped us develop new products. And no fewer than 90,000 members joined in our first ever member-inspired ice cream, which just sold 285,000 tubs just in the last year. And we're already off to a great start in delivering our vision for 2023. We established a new relationship with Bernardo's so that we could head cooperatively towards a £5 million fundraising target to support 750,000 young people. And so far this year, we've already delivered almost 10% of that target. We've also been working with Co-ops UK and independent cooperative societies to raise funds with members and customers to support the disasters and emergency appeal, where we responded to earthquakes in Turkey and in Syria. We also invested in our Peer Action Collective initiative, supporting young people to make their communities safer and fairer. And we also announced a new £1 million partnership with the RSPB to restore vital peatlands. Yet, despite all of these early wins for our visions and the positive trajectory of what we're able to do for others, we have to stay alert to ongoing risks and challenges. And for those of us who joined us at our AGM last month, you'll remember that I drew your attention to the hard work that still lies ahead of us this year. The Co-op Group has to deliver with commercial and operational discipline. It has to drive growth, and it has to continue to do the right things by our members, our colleagues, and our communities. That's hard work in normal times, but especially now, there's an added pressure. And those at the AGM will also remember that our new Chief Membership and Customer Officer, Kenyatta Nelson, he shared details around the call to action that we're going to bring to our members as we head towards new growth and new possibilities. And the messaging there is intended to help our businesses disrupt their markets and find new strength, driving a net 1 million new members to join our co-op over the next 5 years. Now, I see this approach as a huge point of competitive differentiation. I see it as being our shared superpower. And if you didn't see his address, it's part of the AGM event video on our co-op, cooperative.coop website. And I really would encourage you to give it a watch. So it lays out our plans to remind our members and our prospective members about the powers and possibilities of cooperation, including how we'll give our members an even easier journey within Co-op Group, making membership both irresistible and indispensable. And the beauty in this approach is that even now, 179 years since 1844, we are still embracing the same values and principles set by our Rochdale pioneers, values and principles that we in this room all share. And it goes without saying that as we encourage existing and prospective members to cooperate within our co-op group and across the movement, we continue to celebrate what we've been able to achieve together as a demonstration of the real power of cooperation. So my colleague, Paul Gerard, who is somewhere in this room, I don't know, he's somewhere out there, he was also able to cite some brilliant examples of cooperation at its best at our AGM. So Paul, who's on the next panel and leads our campaigns and public affairs and board secretariat, spoke to some brilliant examples of driving change together with our advocacy work. Our campaign to secure greater support for slavery survivors was approved by our members at the 2017 AGM, and it ran through to 2022. And this campaign led to our co-op group becoming the first British business to receive a global Thomson Reuters Stop Slavery Award in 2018. We were recognized for founding Bright Future, an employment program established for slavery survivors, and it could not have come without cooperation. Cooperation between cooperatives, businesses, and survivors and charities created new and life-changing routes to employment, independence, and a better life for so many people. As Paul did, I too have to pay credit to those who saw the potential of this initiative and first joined these efforts. It was Central Co-op and Mid-Counties Co-op. They saw that this idea had the scope to become an independent cooperative in its own right, with 11 businesses and 20 charities acting as members. And then it was the Co-op Party that championed tackling slavery at a political level through its modern slavery charter and then the subsequent adoption of dozens of councils. I mean, that's tremendous, and that's the sort of change that only the cooperative movement can bring about. So another example is our Safer Colleagues and Safer Communities campaign, which created change to better protect shop workers. That could not have won the support of every party in Westminster and achieved new legislation if we hadn't engaged with fellow cooperators, CEOs of high street businesses and USDA, who are long-standing supporters of shop worker safety. Now, I stand with Paul when I say that the cooperative movement, with Principle 6 as a basis for these campaigns, has achieved these remarkable things, and it won't rest there. I'm privileged to have become part of several groups with the power to make meaningful, deep, and lasting change in response to those same challenging years that I talked about right at the beginning, where vulnerability and inequality in our communities was highlighted and exacerbated. So I thought I would share a little bit of detail on these as examples of where we will be advocating for cooperation from the inside as a tried and tested route to effective results. But most importantly, I wanted to highlight that what cooperatives are capable of and to encourage us all to share our ideas and experiences, find new ways of working together and making a difference on behalf of our members and the wider movement. Last month, I was honored to join the inaugural meeting of the government's Net Zero Council as its co-chair, alongside the Minister of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, the Right Honourable Graham Stewart MP. And as we know, and as our members continue to tell us, the climate crisis is the single most important issue that our global society faces, and something that we have to work on to improve as a business. And it was great to be able to discuss next steps with leaders from major organizations, including Siemens, HSBC, and NatWest, along with insurers and representatives across sectors. And together we'll be working to establish routes to realizing some key objectives, including integrated pathways for sectors and companies of all sizes to reach net zero, to think about the challenges that they face and the roles that have to be played by the finance sector and by government to overcome them. We'll be working towards a whole economy framework, which for this country does not exist at this point, and which we will be driving. So Co-op Group is the only grocery retailer that's represented in this forum. And I see my attendance there, like I see my attendance in other places, as not just the CEO of the Co-op Group, but on behalf of our movement as well. This work is something of great personal importance to me, as it will be to many of you, as well as to the Co-op Group. The World Wildlife Federation Living Planet report in 2022 shows that as someone like me who was born in the 1970s, the world that my children were born into has 69% less wildlife population, and with a staggering 94% decline in tropical regions than the one that I had the privilege of growing up in. Those are incredibly sad statistics, and unless we do something, they're only going to be getting worse. What we know is that none of us can get to net zero without everyone getting to net zero. And by everyone, it's not just our industries, our country. It has to be a global effort. We won't achieve that joint target unless we work together, all together, to cross that finish line. And this is a mindset that I continue to champion, I'm sure like many of you do, and encourage others to adopt in several related groups where I'm able to represent both Co-op Group and our movement. I'm also chairing the British Retail Consortium's Climate Action Roadmap Steering Group, and I'm part of the WWF Retailers Commitment for Nature, which is aiming to halve the environmental impact of UK shopping baskets by 2030. And where we're using cooperation to make things fairer for the planet, we're also using it to bring in the heart of our efforts to create fair access for opportunities for young people and a chance for a better life for those who need it. Between the pandemic and the cost of living crisis, our next generation will experience repercussions for years to come. We will have all seen this in our own homes and in our wider friendship and family groups. We have recognized this, and through our ongoing programs for young people, our Youth Advisory Board, and the 30 schools in our Co-op Academies Trust, which serve over 18,000 students. Driving our own related community mission and working with partners has been key to enabling our co-op to provide meaningful and sustainable solutions to support these young people whose communities and prospects have been so badly affected. And this has been the ambition of many of our recent high-profile projects. As I mentioned earlier, we are so thrilled to be partnered with Bernardo's, and we witness the potential to drive further meaningful change right from the beginning of our new relationship. In May, we shared one of the largest studies of its kind, the Youth Opportunities Tracker, which considers the experiences, life chances, and aspirations of over 5,000 10 to 25-year-olds in the UK. And some of the findings that we shared are harrowing. The study showed that in the last 6 months, almost half of young people have worried about being able to afford the very basics, and almost a quarter said that they've started the day without a meal. Having enough money to cover just basic needs is now the most common aspiration for 9 in 10 of young people who participated, and it overtook other traditional goals like achieving a dream job or buying a house. To think about, when we were kids, what our aspirations were, and it's really sad to see this change. This study and the product of our cooperation together is something that we publish to motivate others and to drive positive change for the future of young people, who will also then go on to be our next generation of cooperators. We continue to make our findings openly available to everyone on our cooperative.coop website. But beyond motivating those with power to create change, this work is about creating power for those who need to make the change. We spoke to 5,000 young people as part of this work, and our ambition remains to give young people a voice and a seat at the table, where their needs are being considered by businesses and by government, developing initiatives and packages to protect their well-being. And as we've seen so often, a top-down approach to a solution, including from Whitehall policymakers, can absolutely have the best of intentions, but all from within an echo chamber and without the resounding voice and direction of those people that they're working to support. And that's why our Peer Action Collective initiative, developed alongside the Youth Endowment Fund and the #IWillFund, saw 17 of its young leaders journey to the House of Commons with insight from their work to make communities safer and fairer places. They went on to campaign themselves for sustainable change with MPs and other decision makers, as well as challenge all of us on what we can do to build safer and fairer communities. They were armed with research from more than 4,500 young people, identifying social deprivation, lack of opportunities, availability of safe physical spaces, intersectional inequality, and a lack of mental health support behind violence and discrimination in their neighborhoods. And we've listened, I'm proud to say. As we represented our members and our co-op group in different forums, we bring the same insight and the voice of these young people into new conversations which promise to make an immediate and ongoing difference in the lives of the next generation. In March, it was my honor to become part of a new task force in London led by Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales. The event focused on early childhood and brought together leaders from leading businesses like NatWest Group, Unilever, IKEA UK and Ireland, Lego Group, and us, Co-op Group. Our role was to share insight, just like that we'd already garnered from young people, to best inform the Princess of Wales's work in transforming how our society prioritizes children in their earliest years, and then all of the ecosystems around them. The task force is part of the Royal Foundation Centre for Early Childhood's Shaping Us campaign, spearheaded by Her Royal Highness herself. Shaping Us is working to ensure that early childhood becomes one of the most strategically important topics of the day, highlighting where society can build a supportive and nurturing world for children, but very importantly for the people who care for them as well. So co-op group, it's important, isn't it? I think, honestly. Thank you. And co-op group contributed its own experience in early years provision, which we do in all of our primary co-op academies, but very importantly, I was able to speak about our wider cooperative concerns in this area and provide examples from the amazing work and expertise of Mid-Counties Co-op with its fabulous Little Pioneers nursery business. I mean, I've been in this role for over a year, and my favorite thing that I've done so far is visit those nurseries, especially the one with all the crawling babies. I mean, oh, they're just gorgeous. But the way that they take care of those children and the nurturing environment about them and the inclusion was exemplary, and I was very proud to be able to bring that into the task force's thinking. It's a good first step that Her Royal Highness brought these organizations together, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish together through the cooperative movement. So to take a breath here, I feel like I've covered two key areas in terms of our co-op realizing greater cooperation. I've spoken about our presence within new task forces to work cooperatively with government and industry to drive change for those who need it. And I've spoken about empowering others to make their own change, including those young people who deserve to be heard at the House of Commons. But there's a third, more introspective aspect to what my team is calling the Holy Trinity of our latest efforts to cooperate further. And that's facilitating greater cooperation across cooperatives. And we shared something on this yesterday, and to this end, I'd like to touch on it now. As we all know, too often, life chances are defined by things over which there's no control. And while that's true of gender, ethnicity, and disability, it also applies to socioeconomic backgrounds. And it really cannot be right that those from poorer backgrounds are almost twice as likely to end up in working class jobs than others from more privileged backgrounds. And that's according to the Social Mobility Commission. And yesterday, we launched a campaign to make socioeconomic backgrounds the 10th protected characteristic under the 2010 Equalities Act. It's supported by our work with the charity Making the Leap in creating the first social mobility study of its kind from any UK retailer and the first of its kind from any major private sector UK employer. And the basis of this report is an analysis of our own co-op group and the career progression of colleagues from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And we found that there is definite room for improvement to reach greater equity for those working across our group. And that's something that we need to own and we need to change, and we will. And as well as Dr. Padmini Iyer, is it Iyer? Someone will shout it out, I hope. Let's say Iyer, and the team at Making the Leap. I'm so grateful to all of our colleagues who shared their backgrounds and their experiences, who made this report what it is. They've helped us to take us beyond our zero discrimination policy and given new depth to our approach to diversity and inclusion. And it's through their contribution that we've been able to create something that's robust, that will lead to change within our co-op group. And we would love for this work to inspire others to consider what they can do within their own businesses or can adapt within related policy. So if anyone here is interested in hearing more or learning more, if our experience can help you, our details, again, are on the website. So if I go back to our AGM briefly, the prospect of working together was something that I spoke to at length. And those of you who could join will remember that I talked of a bright cooperative future and ambition for our co-op group and the wider movement. And I just wanted to talk about that very briefly now, as it's such a brilliant opportunity with such an important audience. The power of cooperation, and specifically Principle 6, or cooperation amongst cooperators, is something that we keep coming back to. Historically, we've spoken about it in the context of our ever-changing world and the need to keep up so that our businesses can remain relevant, so that they can effectively serve and support our members, and importantly, offer fellow cooperators the best possible partnerships. We've spoken about it in terms of finding ways to overcome historical problems such as lack of individual scale or a lack of overall capital due to our corporate structures. And we've done some great things which have delivered real benefits, but I really want us to change the narrative now. I want us to view Principle 6 not as a means of overcoming challenge and adversity, but as a means of realizing true potential and true opportunity. I want us to go back to our roots and focus on what we can build, not what we can fix. We need to take confidence in a model that has served our members well, but I think we need to be braver and even more creative to unlock the inherent power of cooperation in the UK, drawing upon lessons that we are learning from across the world. So I've been fortunate to spend time this year with some of our European cooperators, and I found them to be excellent examples of playing to the strengths and offering products and services in marketplaces where they know that they can and will compete and excel. But even more interestingly, as cooperatives, they have identified specialist knowledge and skills required to make their businesses a success and have sourced it in cooperation with others. That includes buying together, distributing together, sourcing and running IT together, marketing and developing membership systems together, and all enjoying significant economies of scale, which has not only enabled them to be leaders in their markets, but leaders by a significant margin. And working in cooperation on those aspects of their businesses allows them to focus on their members and engage in their communities, rather than on the nuts and bolts of running any old business. These members, in turn, develop a greater understanding of being served by the cooperative, which they also own, which is a USP that their competitors cannot possibly touch. And it will always remain their greatest advantage over another business model. And I think that the same applies to us as UK cooperators. So as I've been encouraging our members and fellow cooperators to join us in reaching new potential, I really wanted to do the same thing with the opportunity I have on this stage here and now with cooperators across the whole economy. Can we become better cooperators by working more closely together? And we're looking at whether there are new ways to increase our capacity together to focus on our members and across the whole movement. And if so, can this lead to us becoming more competitive and magnifying the work we do for those who depend on us? I really, really hope that that's the case. And the big burning question that continues to sear my mind day and night is, what is today's broken market? And how can cooperation make the sea change our predecessors achieved in the 1800s? How can we do that in today's world? And then, how can that lead to cooperation becoming a core tenet of members' lives while serving them and their communities in a way that we know cooperatives can? I believe that one of these issues will be discussed on a panel immediately after I get out of your way, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now, I'm mindful that time can go by very quickly, and for you in the audience, it's probably felt even longer while you've heard me drone on. But what I will say to close is that I look forward to seeing what change we will create for our collective future, whether that's change in ourselves as we realize new ambitions for our members and our colleagues, important change for others who need our support, but also change together, forging new strength through cooperation across our movement. So thank you very much for giving me this time to speak. I hope that this has planted some seeds which will lead to new green shoots of cooperation between us all in the future, and enjoy the rest of Congress. Thank you.
Isn't that just music to all our ears? Cooperative group looking to be a beacon of cooperation. So we don't have time for questions with Shirine right now because there was so much in there. We felt like that would go on for about another hour. But Shirine is very committed to getting to know many more of you in the movement, so she will be around for the rest of the day, and she's definitely up for talking and answering questions.